Right, here we go.
Hello,
Hello. Good morning.
back earlier than usual.
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
only like a 6-week gap, I think, since the last time.
Yeah.
Hope everyone's well.
Yeah. And we had a great music sharing session last night. Very excited to share what we've been listening to. So let's kick off with no further ado. Did I start, John? I think I did. I started with a track from O'Donnell Levy, and I think this is actually a compilation of two albums, and I noticed Mr. Bongo have just reissued one of them. We listened to the track called, I think it was called Sierra Lonely, and I was commenting on the amazing rhythm section of course, O'Donnell Levy on guitar, but also Tony Levin on the bass and Steve Gadd on the drums. And yeah, just groove merchant, early 70s music. Grooving.
They were quite a combination, those two, during that time. I think
Yeah.
they did a lot of stuff. And talking about reissues, this came out, I think, last year on We Want Sounds, and this was the Jack Wilkins with the famous version of Red Clay on there as well. And We Want. It's a nice reissue, actually, and there's been some really slightly dubious reissues of mainstream stuff that's come out over the years, but this one sounded really good.
Really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, classic tracks sampled hundreds of times, I think,
Yeah.
actually.
Well, it was a no-brainer to move then to A Tribe Called Quest, because they famously sampled that Red Clay track. We listened to something from the Low End Theory. What did we listen to? It sounded absolutely sensational. Check the Rhyme.
Yeah.
My goodness, the production was absolutely fantastic on this. Yeah, great.
I never quite know whether that one or Midnight Marauders are my favourite.
Yeah.
Tribe Called Quest. So get with the Q-Tip connection. I pulled out a CD, which is the went to
There you go, John.
The Kurt Rosenwinkel album Hardcore, which came out on vinyl actually not so long ago as well, from 2000, which came out at the same time as he contributed to Kamal the Abstract, the Q-Tip album as well. And this is co-produced with Q-Tip and has a kind of Q-Tippy sound to certainly some of the instrumental sections. Really good. If you don't know Kurt Rosenwinkel, is a really interesting, very good guitarist. Sounds quite different to the people of the same generation as him, like Matheny and Bill Frisell and Schofield and Co. It's definitely got his own sound, and this has got some great album. All his records are really worth checking out. Actually, he's very, very good. Kurt Rosenwinkel, Hardcore on Verve.
We then had a Rewind 12-inch. This is on the Ubiquity label, and this is a band who basically the Rebirth do versions of rare groove tracks with a slightly contemporary twist, and they did a version of the Mighty Riders track Evil Vibrations, and this is a great version.
They also slipped in a couple of bits of other tunes in there as well.
Well, basically that track was famously sampled by De La Soul, and they kind of referenced that in this remix.
I just then pulled out a classic, which is Steve Arrington, Weak at the Knees, from his first album, second album,
I think,
from the Hall of Fame. Steve Arrington, formerly the drummer in Slave, and his solo albums are great. And Mark was just remarking how completely different it sounds to almost everything around at the time, actually, and certainly nobody's kind of followed that kind of grooves that that he was playing at the time. Great drummer, great singer actually as well,
and great bass player.
Yeah,
fantastic. Well, I've been learning this track on the bass, just it's such a fantastic groove. This is D'Angelo's Voodoo, but I'm talking about the track Spanish Joint. I'm sure people know it, but it's a timeless classic. And we were talking actually over breakfast at how forward that album sounds, and which is now 20 years old.
20 years old must be, yeah.
And that contemporary soul and R&B in many ways hasn't moved a huge distance in that period.
Yeah. Also, I was thinking about how incredibly underrated Charlie Hunter is as well.
Yes.
He's playing bass and guitar.
Playing an 8-string guitar.
Fantastic. I don't know what the connection was with this, but I pulled out great jazz trio and was it Kindness, Joy, Love and Happiness album. Great jazz trio were led by pianist Hank Jones, who's one of the Jones family, along with Elvin and Thad. I think he was the last one to pass away, actually. He passed away a few years ago. trios with different lineups, but mostly with Ron Carter and Tony Williams, and you can't really go wrong with those, and mostly released in Japan as well. This one did actually come out in the States on Inner City. And we played the version of the classic Freedom Jazz Dance, of course,
by Eddie Harris.
Very heavy version of it with them.
Very heavy.
With I think it was weird because what happened at that time, Tony Williams, who'd been playing fusion, then went back to playing acoustic jazz more, but kind of kept his big fusion kit.
Yes.
This massive sound.
It sounded like John Bonham playing jazz. Actually, that's what it sounded
very
like.
much like, yeah. And it's a great album. All the great jazz trio albums, certainly the ones with Ron Carter and Tony Williams, are fantastic. Actually, there's two at the Village Vanguard which are really great as well. So yeah, kindness, joy, love, and happiness. We all need all those actually.
We do, and we then had to listen to some Eddie Harris. From the album I Need Some Money, as you know, big Eddie Harris fan. A track called Get On Down, which is just an ecstatic groove tune that builds with a sort of a drum machine which gradually speeds up, and somebody playing the Brazilian instrument, the cuica, and then develops into this incredible groove with Eddie blowing his sax and then doing this incredible scat.
Yes.
Over just a totally
completely mad,
uninhibited mad scat. And of course, this features Ronald Muldrow on the git organ, who is the dad of Georgia Ann Muldrow. And also some wonderful bass playing from, talking of people who play guitars with more strings than they should. He plays a 6-string bass, Rufus Reid.
Great album, actually. And followed that up, played a few CDs at this session, actually, so hoping not get cancelled as well. That's what we were saying earlier on. The Herbie Hancock from the album The New Standard, which did come out on vinyl as well, but the vinyl sounded absolutely horrible. Trying to put too much music on the sides, basically. And this is a band from the 90s with Michael Brecker, John Schofield, Dave Holland, Jack DeJohnette, and Don Elias, so pretty hot band to say the least. And played a great version on here of the Stevie tune, which is what Stevie tune? You've Got a Bad Girl. Amazing conga playing from Don Elias at the beginning of it, and fantastic drumming from Jack DeJohnette as well. So it's a really good album. This one tends to get overlooked because it came out during the CD era, but it's really about time somebody needs to do a really good vinyl reissue of this, I think. Herbie, can't go wrong really.
Well, there's a natural choice to go for Stevie, and in particular, I've been watching the series Atlanta, which I know has been out for a few years, that features Donald Glover, also known as Childish Gambino, in the lead role. And there was a particularly weird episode that I'd watched a couple of days back, which is sort of almost set in a haunted house. One of the most disturbing bits of TV I've watched. I mean, gripping. I highly recommend it. But it's bookended by 2 tracks from the Music of My Mind Stevie Wonder album. And we listened to the track that appears at the beginning, which was Sweet Little Girl. And just to give you a sense of the ominous vibe of that episode, it ends with the track Evil from Stevie Wonder.
I can still remember when Music of My Mind came out, actually. It was absolutely mind-blowing. People just didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, we were just sort of saying the change in a Motown sound from what was going on previously to that must have just been phenomenal.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then, keeping with the Stevie vibe, went for Sarita from her, what was it, first album or second album? I don't remember. But played
the best, I would say.
Yeah, definitely the best. And also one of my favourite songs by Stevie, which he never recorded himself, I don't think, which is Black Maybe. Absolutely beautiful song. Fantastic kind of Rhodes playing on there, some great guitar licks. We were wondering who the guitar player was, actually. It doesn't say on the cover. Don't think it didn't sound like Jeff Beck, but it was fantastic anyway.
Michael Sambello, maybe.
Yeah, Michael Sambello, definitely great album. This one anyway. All their albums are good, actually.
Yeah. We went into a stripped down 12-inch Jill Scott track called Gimme, which came out I think in 2001, and I kind of missed it. Very simple, but a great groove. And I've been doing a fair bit of DJing, like live recently, and it's just I've been getting the odd, more danceable track in my collection.
Yeah, sounded very almost like a demo, actually, Jill Scott, but nice. And this is when things started to break down a bit, as they often do. This has just been reissued on vinyl and all kinds of different formats. And I got this is an OG copy of it, actually. I got it out and it sounded incredible. So I haven't yet invested in the new mastering. But
I don't think you need to, John.
Overnight, I mean, it did sound amazing.
It really sounded fantastic.
Overnight Sensation, Frank Zappa and the Mothers, of course, from I think probably one of his most popular albums, sales-wise, actually, and played the completely bonkers track called Montana, which is all about running a dental floss farm. If you're not familiar with it. And yeah, it just sounded really, really good as well. And the production on those records was incredible.
I was saying to John, I'd been watching a YouTube video, interviews with Frank Zappa from the mid-80s, where he was warning of the imminent fascist theocracy.
Yes.
Which tends to be a little bit prescient, I think. I showed this album last session. This was the reissue that I picked up on a very tasty pink vinyl, which basically puts an album that was originally just on one piece of vinyl onto two. It still sounds very toppy, but I think that's just Todd's production. But we listened to Sometimes I Don't Know What to Feel. What a great song. What a great soul tune that is.
I just remember my old amp, my very first amp I had a treble cut off on it.
Oh, really?
I used to quite often put that on with Todd, I think, actually. I do love it. It was fantastic music. Then, weirdly, Mark, I had a conversation with Mark in between this session and our last one, where he actually said he'd been watching the Rolling Thunder documentary
and loving it.
So, and Mark's not usually known for his Bob Dylan kind of positive vibes. So I got this. This is one of the bootleg series, the live one from the Rolling Thunder period, which is great. Actually, it's a really good record, actually. And played One More Cup of Coffee off there with some great bass playing from Rob Stoner.
Absolutely, brilliant. Yeah. No, and I was enjoying the violin on that track, which made me think of Eddie Jobson on Roxy Music's Country Life, which again, just such a groundbreaking sound. I mean, flanged out of existence, but wonderful track, Out of the Blue was the tune we listened to.
Eddie Jobson, of course, who joined Zappa for a period as well.
That's right.
Yeah. Keeping more in the kind of rock side of things, I pulled out my almost obligatory Tedeschi Trucks album. This is from their second studio album and the third album overall, I think, and played the title track of Made Up Mind. I mean, all their records are really, really good. And I'm also really pleased to see that Susan Tedeschi's early records are starting to get reissued as well, which is good. So yeah, from the second album, Made Up Mind.
I was feeling a bit of Southern boogie and pulled out, I think this was the first Lynyrd Skynyrd album, actually, wasn't it? I remember this caused a lot of excitement at the time. And I saw the band actually at Hammersmith Odeon in this original lineup before the tragic plane incident, produced by Al Cooper, and we listened to Poison Whiskey, which actually had a very funky groove.
Yeah, keeping with a kind of slightly similar, not really actually, a little bit more soulful side of things. Moll Sanders from his Fire Up. Moll Sanders, because I suppose best known for his work with Jerry Garcia, and played the track off this. This is the album with range of tracks with Garcia and Tom Fogerty, but also some tracks with Chuck Rainey and co as well. And I played the track Chock Like Pudding, which I think ended up as a theme tune to a TV series or featured in a movie of that, which is a kind of mid-tempo funky groove.
Gaylord Birch on the drums.
Gaylord Birch on drums and Chuck Rainey on the bass.
And Gaylord Birch featured on the drums on this album that I'm pretty sure we've shared
quite a few times.
I
think I've shared it and you have as well.
Yeah, the Pointer Sisters Having a Party album, which has the most ridiculous cast list of musicians. I'm saying this was obviously the party period. I think it was 1977. Budgets didn't seem to be an issue, and I mean, why have just Gaylord Birch when you could also have James Gadson and Ed Green as your drummer, and why have just Lewis Johnson when you could also have James Jamerson, Willie Weeks, Gene Santini, and Chuck Domenico? I mean, ridiculous, but a fantastic short bit of beautiful music called Bring Your Sweet Stuff Home to Me, which just is a really ecstatic, joyful track. if you want to listen to it.
I think the reason we featured it so much is there's so many good tracks on it. Actually.
Yeah.
Also, the album, I think that's one after it with the shoe on the front as well, is another really good one as well. Another classic came out. We have Patrice Rushen and we have Posh, the album Posh. Getting a lot of reflection here now.
That's perfect there.
And played the track off here, the classic Never Gonna Give You Up as well. I mean, just love Patrice really. And I always think she plays a little short, probably only 4 or 5 bar solo on here, and it's always perfect, her solos. Actually, yeah, love Patrice.
Okay, 2 Tons of Fun. Back at Ya, classic disco boogie album from 1980 on the Fantasy record label. And the absolutely astonishing Never Like This. 2 Tons of Fun, Izora Armstead and Martha Wash. Did they also become the Weather Girls? I think they might have done.
I think maybe half of them did.
Maybe half of them did. Martha Wash definitely features in quite a lot of solo stuff. But yeah, beautiful groove. If you don't know Never Like This, go and find it and listen to it. Beautiful stuff.
Then kind of something definitely showed before on the videos as well, and we have still thank Mellowman, Lawrence Mellowman, for introducing a lot of people to this record. I think this is Walter Heath from the album You Know You're Wrong, Don't You, Brother? I didn't play the usual track off this. I played the track Africa off here, and again another ridiculous kind of lineup of musicians on here: Wilton Felder, Ed Green, and co as well. It's a very nice record. This one, it's the only one he made, I think. The various other records came out, but they tended to be compilations of singles and so forth. And that came out in the kind of mid-70s, I think, on Buddha Records.
Well, I think we've definitely got a contender for worst album of the session. Worst album cover, I should say. Check that out. Look at that. Jermaine Jackson, Let Me Tickle Your Fancy. Dear, oh dear. Still in the shrink. We listened to a great tune called There's a Better Way with some wonderful percussion on it. But yeah, not a great cover. And actually, the rest of the album's not great, but that track's amazing.
And then moved on to another album, which is not great all the way through, but does have 2 really good tracks on it. And this is Freddie Hubbard's Windjammer, which was one of his CBS albums, which got a lot of flack, actually. I mean, people tended to really not like them. There's some good tracks on most of them, actually. And played the track off here called Terra Nova. And yeah, produced by Bob James. Some great kind of nice bass playing from Gary King. Good track, and also the title track Windjammer off here is really good as well. There's a fantastic live version by Grant Green from the Lighthouse, which is literally lifts the roof off, actually, if you ever get a hold of that album as well. Freddie Hubbard, Windjammer.
Well, regular viewers and listeners of radio shows that we do will know that we're great fans of the track People Make the World Go Round. And here's a version on a CTI album by Freddie Hubbard called Polar AC, which apparently John was telling me was a selection of kind of offcuts that didn't make the
great album.
The cut for other albums. But yeah, very, very good. And an incredible band on this. I mean, you've got Ron Carter, Billy Cobham, Jack DeJohnette, Lenny White, George Benson, Hubert Laws, Airto, George Cables, and Junior Cook.
Featuring a man without any genitals on the front as well.
Yes, indeed. Great sounding album.
Yeah. Thinking of strings and thinking of actually one of my favourite records, which I'm amazed I've never shown before at a session, Art Pepper's Winter Moon album, which I think was his favourite record he made himself as well, from the Galaxy period, from the time when he re-emerged from various prison sentences and addiction programs and stuff. The core band is Stanley Cowell on piano, who's a bit of a favourite of our sessions as well. Susan McBee on bass, and Carl Burnett, who also played with Freddie Hubbard on drums, and a great, really proper string arrangements. I mean, this is not just slapping some strings on, some really great arrangements by Bill Holman on this track. Really good album if you ever get a chance to pick this up, actually. And the one that came out from the day after, 1 September afternoon, is really, really good as well. I mean, actually, there isn't a bad Art Pepper album, so
no,
but you can buy any of them, really, but really beautiful stuff.
I think the connection was the strings, wasn't it? Because there's lovely strings on the Freddie Hubbard, Don Sobieski. Oh, and more strings. Oh, this is another great cover. Are you ready for some Tony Curtis and Roger Moore? This, of course, is a compilation of John Barry theme tunes. I think I bought this. I was a big fan of the Persuaders, which I notice has not really aged very well.
No, it doesn't.
Basically, I think at that time I wanted to be a Playboy gambler. I think that's what my aim in life was, to be aged 10 or 11.
It's not too late, Mark.
No, it could still happen. We listened to Thunderball. Fantastic.
Yeah. Keeping with the John Barry connection, and also like keeping connection to a band, to an artist we saw in London actually a few weeks ago now. Fantastic.
And we met Ed Topper.
Met Ed Topper. Hello to Ed Topper.
Yeah,
for
hi,
watching
Ed.
the video as well. And played a Bill recorded one of the highlights of the show was a fantastic version of "You Only Live Twice," for me at least. And Bill's recorded it a couple of times, and this is the version from his album, which was called "When You Wish Upon a Star," which is all movie and TV themes. Great version of the Bonanza theme on here, amongst others as well. And yeah, this is a band which featured the three musicians we saw in with Thomas Morgan and Rudy Royston, but also some others as well. It's a great version, actually, with some lovely vocals from Petra Hayden, who's one of Charlie Hayden's triplet daughters.
Yeah, very nice, beautiful. This is actually my most recent purchase.
Right.
Peter Brotzman, Majid Bekas, who's a Moroccan gimbri player who also sings, Hamid Drake on drums. This is I think the last recording that Peter Brotzman ever made, a live recording. It's been released posthumously in his memory. It's called Catching Ghosts, and it's live at the Jazz Fest Berlin. Really, really nicely recorded, and just a fascinating melange of improvisationary sounds. He sounds totally at ease.
Yeah,
in that kind of setting.
Also, so fascinating. We came in, I knew who it was after about 4 seconds. I thought even less than that, actually, instantly.
And interesting, the Evan Parker album, Natural Information Society, which featured
Josh Abrahams.
Josh Abrahams. It was in a similar kind of area.
Definitely. Keeping with much anticipated, but nobody ever knew this existed really. This is the collaboration between Derek Bailey, and who's one of my favourite musicians, and Paul Motion, who is another one of my very favourites. So I got very excited about this record that's come out on Frozen Reeds. It was discovered by in the Incas collection of tapes. Actually, nobody really knew this existed, and it's caused quite a lot of excitement, and people saying it's kind of, the kind of record they dreamed to exist and never knew it was here. So it's a long improvisation with Derek and Paul Motion. What's interesting really about it is they both sound like themselves, but they play quite differently really to how they normally play. Quite restrained, ultra responsive. And I think, Derek, when he was with a band with Gavin Bryars and Tony Oxley, they used to listen obsessively to the Bill Evans trio, and maybe there was almost a little bit of deference going on from Derek, which doesn't really generally go with his character, I have to say. So yeah, great stuff. Really interesting record. I've only listened to it a couple of times, but it's really already going to be a classic. Probably a vying for album of the year already for me. Came out in Frozen Reeds.
Wow. Well, we were in last tune territory, and completely out of nowhere decided to drop Fire and Rain from James Taylor. Just a sublime piece of music. Beautiful.
My last piece was from Joe Henry from the album Civilians, which is played the track Love Is Enough off it. Just sounded such a shame that so many of his records have never been released on vinyl, but the sound on it is fantastic, actually. Great band with just really good musicians playing in the background. Great arrangements, good lyrics, and it's a beautiful song. Love Is Enough.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for tuning in if you've made it this far. Do remember, John and I have got excellent radio shows with links underneath the video for you to listen to. And probably we're going to be wishing you a Merry Christmas.
I think we are, yeah, absolutely.
Next session's going to be in January.
It'll be New Year, yeah.
Right.
So have a good one. Happy holidays to everybody.